Did you listen to Jeff and Professor Hemo in the morning? Here's what
we have with
missed.
us a man who embodies the true term Mtumishii. You know, once upon a time when I worked somewhere else, there was one young man I worked with. Actually, it's with Rashid Abdallah. I was his producer, and we never called any MP Mheshimiwa. We insisted on calling them Watumishi. Some of them didn't like it. But the man who's here with us today
is the Mtumishii.
Is the true Mtumishii and embodies that. Ladies and gentlemen, today on a Hot Breakfast, we're speaking with Njeru Kathangu. He's a former member of parliament for Runyenjes, but most importantly, he is one of the people for whom we have to thank for all of the freedoms we have today. One of the fighters for Kenya's second liberation, as we call it. Mtumishii, thank you for coming.
Asante sana.
Karibu sana. Habari ya utokako?
Kwetu ni kuzuri. Nimeacha kila mtu melegea kidogo sababu hatukuwa tumekula breakfast. Niliwaamsha mapema. Niwe tayari. Lakini najua kwamba wanasikiza hii.
Good. I hope wako salama sana. Na tunawashukuru.
Asante.
Kwa kusaidia kujitayarisha kufika hapa leo. Let's talk about the country today. It's 2018, it's November, the year is almost over. There's a lot that's happening, and we'll get to what people are saying about different things, politically and otherwise. But as a man who's seen Kenya from way back through the different stages, maybe even when we're going through some of our rougher patches, what's the sense you get of the country today?
Kenya has presented a very challenging point to African continent throughout history. That it is one of those nations that attracted the British away from Uganda in 1888, and for reasons that people could not understand. But it started by the detentions of Kabarega and Oronana, the men that represented the Maasai in the struggle against occupation of the British. The two gentlemen created a history that nobody has been able to break here. And it is that history on which we have been struggling, that there is resistance and there is a perpetrator. And that perpetrator has been able to trigger thinking, new thoughts to Kenyans. So that you are west and east of the railway. Today, we are talking about the Freedom War in 1950s. We are talking about the second liberation. And now we are talking about an intra-struggle between government officials because of corruption. And everything that is happening here is opening up young people, for example, those who think that they cannot work but receive. Those who think about houses and cars and land are now thinking about how they would land in prison and actually die there. Like my brother Kathangu has died, and God bless him. Why did he die? Nobody knows, God knows. But he died in prison. So, is that what we want to do? No. What I'm saying is this. A new leadership is created by the problems that this nation faces every day. And whether we are struggling against a despot or you are struggling against yourself, it opens you up to new thinking. That, I think, for me, is the greatest thing that this nation goes through.
You have been imprisoned in this country many times. Just in the fight for us to have, for example, the number of radio stations that we have, the number of television stations that we have, the access to internet where we can freely speak with each other and express our ideas, and talk to people like the president. I mean, if you go on Twitter and Facebook, people speak to their leaders and tell them exactly how they feel. But then there's also a sense in which maybe some people think we're taking a step back, or that maybe all of this democracy was for what? Because Kenyans are waking up this morning and they're still struggling. They're still having a hard time putting food on their table. They're saying, democracy ndio hiyo. We are free to speak, lakini tumbo zetu hazina chochote.
Shinda iliyoko ni government because of electing a president or a member of parliament or an MCA. We are talking about a democratic development that involves every one of us to participate as majorities in making decisions about how we want our nation to be, about how we want our village to be built, about how cooperatives should be run, about how a school should be developed. That is the democracy we are talking about.
Mtumishii, are we there yet?
We are there.
Yeah.
We are there, but we have got a badly corrupted brain, majority of us, that everything we say and do, we expect the self to benefit more than the community. So we use the democracy to decide about our benefits as individuals. That needs to be reversed so that the individual decides for the community about the values and the gains that the community demands, because that is the aspiration. In fact, even the person that is corrupt in this nation, participating in a democracy, still thinks that this community should be a flower among others. But unfortunately, he is attracted more to himself or herself and the community. So what I'm saying is this. Let this nation not misguide itself by thinking that we have not achieved democracy. We have, but we are misusing it. Because really, democracy is about majorities. When the majority gets in there and makes a decision, however wrong it is still democratically right. Because it is the majority that made the decision, right? And people should not also blame their leaders, because leaders are created by the people. And if the people think like the leaders do, then they create their own leaders.
Because the leaders come from the people.
They come from them.
Yeah.
So these are their creatures.
Yeah.
And all they need to do is for society itself to change its attitude so that
It
the
can
right
produce
leadership
better leaders.
is achieved. Yeah. So we are there.
We're there.
We are there.
Do you think we have more freedoms now? You were imprisoned for saying things that were contrary to the state.
Originally,
Yes.
Yvonne, I can tell you that myself and George and Yona, to be able to open up some areas in this city, we established contact with 26 bars and restaurants. And we would go to these restaurants. George would take one corner of the counter. I would take another corner of the counter. And one of us would throw some provocation to the other. And I would say, George, did you hear where the president was today? Man, opening a small little dispensary in one of the rural areas. And George would say, oh, the man has got nothing to do other than to walk around. And everybody would walk out from
Of course, because at that time, Mtumishii, that was almost treasonous to do,
It was.
to even think.
But we were accused of it. So everybody would walk out.
Yeah.
The management would come to us quarreling and complaining. Why are you closing our bar?
Yes. You're losing them business.
But today, I get in anywhere and everywhere. I don't participate these days. And,
You don't have to.
I don't know. I get into some place and everybody is saying, look at what Uhuru is doing. That's how you move to the and there is nobody talking. Even the policemen around whom I know are participating in the same debate.
Because then it was different. There was special branch, remember, which is now, well, it's morphed into a number of things, NSIS and now NIS. But I remember those days, and even right after the coup, it was pretty serious. There was no way you could say anything. They were everywhere.
Now, this is a game that people should be able to protect. And things start gliding back to where we were when people do not become vigilant. Now, what happens is that when there is an attack on leadership, like there is now, for example, and this is public, I can actually see one of the headlines here saying something to do with Ruto's hotel, Weston Hotel. Now, Ruto is the deputy president, not vice president. Deputy.
Yes.
A man that belongs equally to the presidency. Now, when a statement like this one comes here, there are a few characters pro Ruto who may start thinking that their man is under attack. And they will go to him, talk to him about why they should be able to squeeze the nuts of people that are talking about this. And so you find that the law is being ignored to discipline people who are thinking otherwise about him. Or that they are on the other side. may also start fighting to have him in, and so forth and so forth and so forth. And that is how people glide to where they came from. For me, what I would say is this: we have achieved what we have. We have the president who has said that he's going to support the rule of law. He is going to fight corruption. The judiciary has said the same. They must remember that they keep the balance of their society. To have it cohesed and make sure that the thinking of the people is about the aspirations of society. Meaning that the president, the parliament, and the judiciary should be united enough to make sure that nobody destabilizes the process. And so that we don't slide back.
Okay.
And when for instance, we hear allegations about the judiciary, for instance,
yes,
that judges are being taken to court. Deputy CJ
yes
is in court.
Yes.
Does it then attack this unity that we are talking about?
No, because that's an individual. An individual has been misdirected. The character has decided to take what is not his. The pharaoh has been discovered.
Yes.
He is brought to justice. And because they are the offerers, if you like, the dispensers of that justice, then they also must accept it generously. Where it is biting them, then they
enjoy the bite.
Yes, enjoy that bite.
My father used to read the People magazine
yes,
and burn it.
Yeah.
But
before they get discovered.
Yes.
For sedation.
Right? Yeah.
And it's just a paper. Right now, we do a newspaper review and we talk about this thing.
That's true.
Yes.
And like you say, it's something that's affecting the deputy president.
Yes.
Can be on the front page of the paper. But I want to talk also a bit about, there was something you said that things are open now and we can say certain things. And Hamo just made me think about you and what you do.
Yes.
Because it was difficult to criticize the president and to make fun of him.
Yes.
And some of the forerunners in the field in which you work, ridiculous. I mean, do you remember when Walter Mongare was mimicking the president, and that was just, they were pushing the boundaries at that time. And then it just became, the first time, of course, he was a little offended. And then, they opened up that space that we could mimic the president, we could do a lot of these things. What does that mean for you as a comedian? When you're sitting right next to Mtumishii, who started that, and then it was ridiculous. And then there's, of course, everybody else. I mean, you feel free to do what you do on stage,
it opens up criticism, because the best way to tell someone the truth is make them laugh about it.
Right.
And it diffuses a lot of... because I see other nations which have no satire allowed to... People degenerate to battles and fight out there, but we talk about them and we make people laugh about it, but at the end they think about it. They think deeply about, hey, what... ametuambia nini? And I believe it comes from the battles you had.
Correct.
Absolutely.
At the same time, we have got 5 people in our society that are most important to make sure that democracy and freedoms are respected. One of them is a musician or the artist and the comedian.
Right.
You have to keep on reminding us through the words that you bring. Secondly is the teacher, the doctor, the lawyer, the professionals who are accepted counselors of the people. That what they say is almost biblical, is almost doctrinal.
Right.
Now the question is this: why would they retreat and not talk? Right? And you see something here, the middle class story, that each one of them wants to live well. Have the child in great school. Have a car driven pole that have this, and the comforts have silenced them, and it is negative. It is not correct. Let the professionals speak, and let the artist talk to us.
Speak as well, I remember when Eric Wainaina tried to do that song before the president. And I remember a minister who has now passed actually stopped him from singing that song before the president. But then slowly, you sort of, you push the boundaries until the doors finally open, and we're able to do that. People think we're more tribal now, Mtumishii, than we were.
Before.
That the young people were supposed to be the hope for the future. They were exposed and they've traveled and they've seen the world. And therefore their minds are open. But on a space that young people who have exposure are thriving, Twitter and Facebook, you're seeing quite a bit of negativity. What is that? I mean, how do you describe that as somebody coming from, you are sitting with George and Yona in a bar?
Yes, everywhere.
Yeah. And at that time when there was the clamor for multipartyism, people were coalesced. It wasn't even about tribe. It was about, this is something that, we want to be able to do. What's happened? Why are we like this today?
The first thing is, what is happening here, I don't like it. I don't like, for example, members of parliament from Mountain Kenya region moving to Naivasha to say, because we are from Mountain Kenya, we must be treated the A, B, C form.
And they say they produce 80% of the country's GDP and they don't get enough in return.
Correct. Now, that's number one. Number two, I don't like that business where people talk about the west and east of the Rift Valley, because all you are doing is you are balkanizing your nation, right? And number three, there is something also I don't like. Characters that are bordering the border communities, where you find there is the Somali Kenyan, you have got Maasai Kenyan, you have got Kuria Kenya, you have got and so on and so on and so forth. And all these characters sometimes start thinking that the other side is better than their own. And the question is, why are they not working enough to make sure that our side is better than the other side? That's one thing I don't like. The other thing is that if we are thinking ideologically, and ideologically simply means you have surpassed ethnicity, So you are saying that it is important that coffee money goes to develop cotton areas, for example. Why? Because maybe the cotton areas have been left behind, and because our nation should be a flower wholesome, we should be able to contribute a bit so that the cotton areas can be able to rise up. That's ideological. Now, the leaders don't like it this way. And I want to repeat something I've said many times. Majority of leaders want a following that is undefined. Following. Meaning that so long as the eye of the areas, the leaders, they don't care about anything else. Look at what is happening. The Luos say they have got Raila. The Gikuyus are saying, is Uhuru going or is he not going? And because we have not prepared another one, let him not go.
To hold on to it.
While the Kalejins are saying, let's see whether we can have Ruto. The proximity to the presidency is so close that if we lose him, we'll lose it. And so forth and so forth. Now, when we start thinking things this way, then we do not offer the role modeling that our youth require. The one you are talking about. The universality of life, that the young man can be able to appreciate Australia. Go out there and survive. The fellow thinks that I can go to Greenland and he fits in. He may not be able, if we continue thinking about the ethnic belonging and tribal consideration, because that is what grows nepotism. And nepotism simply is this. You go to our ministries. How many are they now? I don't know. They are very many. Those ministries, those ministries are occupied by the families of the top 5. The CS, the PS, and maybe the chief accountant and the accounting or whatever. Those are the people that own the ministry. Now, what will happen to the rest of the nation? So, there are families that are all consumed into ministry management, and there are those sections of the society who have never been to government at all. So, we have to open up. And opening up is think out of ethnicity, think out of tribalism, and don't promote nepotism.
Indeed, that's a good place to take a bit of a break. Yes.
Before we go on a break, there's a question. When you're talking about our councillors, the
Yes.
doctors, the engineers.
Yes.
There's an attack on these role models. Like, for instance, you sit with your father and you're watching TV, the news, and then a politician comes. Right, anatokea, and unaona ana change. Hii ni mjinga gani ana. Na wewe ni mtoto umekaa hapo. Ukiangalia. Are we from that, are we shaping our nation towards?
No, we have to appreciate our leaders. Like I said, that we created them. However foolishly we did, but we did it democratically. If Raila was elected and is accepted as, why they follow him, why would you say that they are foolish? Because they have got their own reason. That reason should be respected because they are part of this society. It's a community you cannot do without. Why? Because it is part of us. And secondly, you cannot do without Raila because he has got contributions to make to this society on behalf of his community. Now, what he is saying, and I think I have noticed, some of the people that come from outside Nyanza do not respect Raila. Some of the people that come from outside Central Province do not respect Uhuru, although he is the president of this nation. Now look, the nation that does not respect their leaders and heroes are bound to fail, because it is the leadership that unites. It is the leadership that represents, and you cannot represent yourself.
Indeed. Okay, so I want us to take a break from this conversation. When we return, I want to hear your thoughts on the talk surrounding a referendum. We're at it again. It's been 8 years since we promulgated the Constitution. Yesterday we had a discussion about whether this referendum, so far, the push for it, is people-driven or driven by politicians, and whether it is something that this country needs. For somebody who's fought for new laws in this country and a new way of thinking, we'd like to hear your thoughts. And we'd like to hear your thoughts as well as you listen in. Hashtag is Jeff and Hamo on Hot at Hot96 at Hot underscore 96 Kenya, at Hamo Prof, and at Yvonne Okwara. We're here this morning with Mtumishii, Njeru, Kathangu.
Thank you.
A revolutionary moment in our lives. Insha Kitu Kidogo, Eric Wainaina, and in that video featuring the comedians from Ridiculous. Mtumishii, you have an interesting story about this song and when it was released.
I know the young man Wainaina. I know him. I lived with his uncle Wainaina in Madaraka Estate. And this evening, as the boy was preparing to release the CD, I visited the house. Not because Wainaina was there. I didn't know. But we went there to say hello in an evening for some coffee. And so, because my wife also is very close to the wife to the Wainaina Sango. And the young man now was giving this story about the CD releasing. And he did not know how it was going to work out. So I said, look, what you do, Wainaina, let's make it a parliamentary project, because I'm in parliament. Produce a few of these things, give me, and let us distribute to these people. You know? Those are the fellows we want to change. Sababu hawa ndio wadogo. Kitu kidogo. Hawa ndio wadogo. Small fellows. So, do it. And let's work out how much it's going to be. Then we can. I remember I gave Nicholas Biwott that copy, a man called Rotondo. Rotondo was very violent. Very violent against it. Very violent. But I told him, look, this is by your grandchild. And your grandchildren cannot be decided on about what they are going to do because they are also free. So if you tell them not to do, will you do it for them? So I give.
Rotondo alisikiza hivi.
The reason why he was violent is because he had it. So the next day they came violent. But I was happy with Biwott. He said, I think the young man is talking something sense. And the good thing with Biwott is he was an educated man. Some others were not. So they were not able to think Biwott. So Wainaina is an artist that I honor, They are some of those people I have been talking about here, that artists can be able to change society.
Are they doing it today, do you think?
I'm not sure. What I see now is people complaining about Gikuyu songs that are saying that awana deni sijui ya nani deni yao ni ya hiyo ingine. So I don't think that is provocative. You know, you are actually saying kina fulani are not qualified. You know, but the kind of music that we want propagated here is the Kamaru type, that JM is dead and he is challenging the killers.
Yes.
It's asking them, so if you have killed JM, where utakufa namna gani? And so forth. You know, these are the kind of things. You are talking about Pharaoh Kuti, and they are challenging the world about his things. You know, that is the kind of thing that I think we need, so that they don't keep quiet, they don't think they belong simply to discourse and jump around saying to us nothing but love, 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 love. No, let's move from love to construction of our society.
Okay. Speaking of construction of our society, we promulgated this constitution in 2010. It's now 8 years, and some people are saying, well, we passed it with 80% of what we liked.
Yes.
There was 20% we didn't like, and it's time to think about working on it, changing the document. Others say the document doesn't have a problem, we are the problem. But this conversation has emerged from nowhere and has gathered such steam. What do you think of this push?
In 1976, we had the same thing. As the president or the deputy president or the vice president was preparing, because Kenyatta was getting old, and they thought that we could say goodnight anytime. So they divided themselves into two groups to start campaigning against constitutional elevation of the vice president in case the giant falls. And they went around campaigning. So we expect that to happen every time that there is wind, that change is coming. Today, of course, we know that Uhuru is exiting presidency in the next 3 years. So there is need for those 3 years to start preparing. You know, in fact, it took Jesus Christ exactly 3 years to prepare a leader. You know, and so Kenya is saying, let's have 3 years preparing another leader. But you know, one of the things that I want to remind Kenyans is that in 2005 and 2009, 2010, we formed ourselves as a country into 4 groups. And these 4 groups were for yes, the constitution. And 4 groups were for no, this constitution. And the yes group continuing to say that it is true 80% of the constitution may not be correct, lakini tupitishe tutakuja kubadilisha baadaye, because we have been on this constitution change for too long. All right, now too long is relative, because you cannot change the constitution as and when you want, but at the same time you cannot take forever changing it. Now, what happened was this: all these men and women you see talking today were all in the no constitution. Please don't change this constitution until the 10 or 20% that is not correct is changed. All of them. And I was there with Ruto. We were the leaders of no campaign. Ruto was working with the red card, and I was the man in charge of Katiba Kombozi. I was the chairman of this nation at that time. And all of us were agreed that we had 78 sections that needed to be looked into. And those 78 include citizenship. They include the balance of what is this? Balance of power. It also include the chapter 6 or whatever you call it. And I will give you one example. Any young person that is found in Kenya, either loitering or whatever it is, but within the boundaries of Kenya, Kenyan or not, and he is about 8 years, that child will be declared Kenyan.
Yeah.
Now, appreciating our porous borders, how would you take all the children that have crossed the border into citizenship? You know, it doesn't tally. It is not correct. And that is why Kenya is so infiltrated by everybody. You know, some people fly here with children, they leave them. And they become our children.
This sounds very similar to what's happening in the United States.
Yes! Characters.
Donald Trump, do you...
Yeah, that is what Donald Trump is fighting.
Yeah.
You know, people cross from Somalia, from Sudan, from Uganda. They bring them from Rwanda. And they leave the children here. They become our children. Look at what is happening on the streets of this city. Is that every beggar in Nairobi, Mombasa, Nakuru, Eldoret are Tanzanians. You cannot change them. They are your citizens because you have so said. Right? So, the constitution as is not correct. It has brought in a lot of confusion. It has become very expensive to implement. For example, let me give about that implementation. Devolution is very good in decongesting government. It's very nice when you talk about decongestion. But when it comes to forming units into tens, for example, 47 counties, in a small, little, poor nation called Kenya, and you are creating some 47 lords, people who think that they are the owners, governors, senators, and so forth, then you are overburdening even the unborn.
How many do you think we should have?
Maximum 14. 14. And those 14 should actually be like states. Let Kenya not pretend. If we want to congest this nation, let's go federal. And going federal simply means that you are going to be creating economically viable units, you know, areas that are supposed to generate their own incomes, manage their own incomes, give them freedom to borrow and pay, but be responsible to
the national
government.
Okay.
Now, akisema, for instance, I believe these numbers, kulikuwa na this rhetoric around we are creating space for people.
That's what they did.
It was meant.
That's what they did in Naivasha. You know, because the struggle was that people thought that the Rift Valley had more constituencies than other areas. And the Central was very committed to making sure that they do not get beaten. And so they went to Naivasha to recreate units. And that is where Nakuru was declared a county. Because the Gikoyus thought that was their area and so forth. And increased the counties to what? But in the Bomas draft, it was very clear that people did not want many counties. They wanted few. For example, Kirinyaga, Embu, Tharaka Nithi were supposed to be one county. You know, they reduced them. They multiplied them and say no. Let's have each one.
Okay. Which is the day that President Uhuru Kenyatta and former Prime Minister Raila Odinga shook hands on the steps of Harambee Avenue. And some feel that even when that happened, we've lost our opposition. We've lost our alternative voice. What do you think of the handshake and the resulting effect in the country, and the fact that there's a proposal to have a national day?
But ma'am, it worries me a lot. 20th of October, Jomo Kenyatta. When he came out there, they proposed that day becomes national. Moi was sworn in Parliament on 10th of October 1955.
Right.
He came in later to create that as a holiday. Let's not go into that nonsense, please. I'm sorry about it. You cannot be creating days simply because you think you're in office. You know? Because look, we have not been able to use Mashujaa Day. Mashujaa Day is supposed to be a day when Kenya won the war. It cannot be when Kenya was subdued. When you get subdued, you don't celebrate winning, do you?
You don't.
No, you don't. Yeah. So Kenyatta Day should not have been the Mashujaa Day. Mashujaa Day should have been 1st of June 1963, right? And we should be celebrating that win as the Heroes' Day, for Kenya. Because Kenya came from freedom war.
Yeah. Okay. Which we do. So you're saying we have holidays that don't...
There are some holidays that don't tally with this society completely.
But Mashujaa Day was to celebrate, a lot of the people like yourself. As well as others. I mean, after it was, after the new constitution from Kenyatta Day to Mashujaa Day.
It would be very serious for me to celebrate when I was arrested. Why would I celebrate when I was arrested and not when I was released? Because it is the release that proclaims your life.
Okay.
The arresting subdues you. I mean, look, I would have died there. But when I come out, let us cut a cake for God's sake to celebrate my release.
Okay.
Look, and we don't want also to fight days because of their names. For example, Kenyatta Day was fought because of personalization of the day, right? And so people thought we cannot continue calling it Kenyatta Day.
Yeah.
That is
and Moi Day as well.
Kutukuza mtu moja. Why don't we change it into
Mashujaa?
Now, even changing it to Mashujaa does not fit. That was Kiraito Morongi, suggesting this thing. I'm not sure why he did it, but he did it wrongly. Now, when we talk about Peace Day, the handshake is universal. The radio stations and the Citizen and the Royal Media are actually proclaiming peace. Mulembe, Wemwaro, sijui nini. All of them are about peace. Everywhere we are is about peace, right? So, if we are talking about making this nation one, let them take Moi Day and combine it with their wishes and call it that. Because even Moi Day is to celebrate unity, enjoy charities, nini.
Peace, love and unity.
Yes, you cannot be celebrating the same thing 3 times a year.
Different names,
same thing.
So for you, Peace Day, no.
We don't need it. We are already living peace times, Every time I am here because there was peace on the streets and I was praying, God, tafadhali nifikishe watu wananingojea. So we are living peace. And this life is about that each one of us wants there to be peace.
Okay.
Splitting hairs about whether that day is going to be Peace Day or not, I don't think.
Okay, so speaking of peace, did that handshake bring peace to this nation?
All they did was to tone down one community. Just to tone down one community. You see, the issue is that Raila Tinga Ondinga is a man of the Luo people. And they respect him. He unites them. He is their symbol. And so when he says, we are dissatisfied by A, B, and C, the people actually think it is correct. But at the same time, I also must say that it is good to respect history. History in that the 2 gentlemen, Ondinga and his father, have contributed something in the past for this country, and that should be respected. The minute we disregard simply means that curse follows us. Listen to this, that Ondinga comes out of goes and fights for Kenyatta to be released. And he refuses to form government in 1961. Himself, personally, he refused to form government. And he said, listen, we are not going to form this government until the political prisoners led by Jomo Kenyatta are out. And that is what happened. Isn't that generosity, surely? And then Raila is rejected by Moi, and he walks out from Kanu, and he comes with him all the giants of Kanu, and he says, look, everybody can be as fit as everybody else. Nyachai is fit, Moi is fit, hata Kibaki tosha. Unaona? Wasn't that something?
It was.
So what I'm saying is this, let's respect that. Now that community follows Raila Ondinga, and democratically we need those numbers, then Raila says, look, Bwana Uhuru, do you respect that our people need to be respected this way? Uhuru says yes. And Uhuru says, Raila, do you respect that if you continue this, we will not be peaceful? And he says, yes. Is it possible that we can handshake so that people can see, so that they tone down? Yeah, hello. And everybody goes, yeah, that is very good.
Mtumishii, with what you're saying then, some political pundits then say that, speaking of the history that you have told us, that the Kikuyu community owes the Luo community something for everything that the Odingas have done for the Kikuyu community?
I don't think...
Because that's what is worrying some people.
I don't think anybody owes anybody anything.
Okay.
Because you see, hakuna deni. Hata mimi, moja na deni yangu, alinifunga miaka mingi na yana deni yangu. All of us are contributing almost equally, you know, to the nation. By Moi jailing me, he provoked the anger of the people, and by the advocates going to court, they kind of moralized our torture, and after that, the people rose to say, release them now. So the perpetrator and the victim and the people contributed to multipartism. Now, listen to this now. When we are talking about the Luo's suffering and the Gikoyo's selfishness and everybody, I said from the beginning, it is in those little things, evil and good, that happens in society that provokes thought for the young, for the scientist, for the preacher, for them to be able to form greater ideas about how society should be constructed.
Okay. I like what you said, that everybody has contributed. You have nothing against the former president Daniel Arap Moi. How is it, Mtumishii, that you're able to speak about those terrible experiences in your life, and I'm watching you, for those who can't see you, and you have this smile on your face? How are you not bitter?
It is this.
How are you not thinking, I mean, this country owes you. The former president owes you. You were imprisoned. How is it that you sit here and you speak about that with no bitterness?
You know, if I thought I'm old, I would have been dead many years ago. You know, because I would have been waiting to be paid.
Yeah.
And it doesn't come. And nobody cares.
Yeah.
So the best thing for me to remind this society is that ukimkanyaga mtu kidole cha mguu, yule mtu anatakiwa kuforgive mwingine ni yule amekanyangwa. Si yule anakanyangana. The people that torture others cannot forgive. Those people that are tortured are the ones to forgive. And those are the ones that create stability and peace in the country. Because otherwise, if you don't do it, you create vicious circles unending. And if you want it well, smile to all. Don't remember people's names, because if you do, and the faces, you remember that they were with you in Nyayo house, you know? And when you do, you hate them. No. So I'm going saying hello to everybody. Kwa mabarabara, kwa wapi, hello, namna gani bana? Nilikuona wapi? Kama tulikuwa nayo Nyayo house, anaanza kuniambia ati tulionana kwa baba. Unaona? Na mimi, I don't care about that. So that is how I'm able to be myself, because all my friends are actually dead. And I think it's because they did not forgive.
Wow.
So we're having a moment of silence just after all of that that wisdom. Thank you.
No, Mom, I have worked in this country for only 7 years. I think 7 or 8. Right? Nobody thinks that Kathangu eats. Hakuna mtu anafikiria hivyo. A lot of people thought and have called me stupid and foolish. They say morals are for the foolish. Why? Ninapewa shamba na kataa. Mtu anaenda naweka pesa kwa akaunti yangu, naambia kwenda toa, pana letitia mimi upuzi. Right? Now, and they say morals are for the foolish. What does that mean? They are calling me foolish.
Yes.
Yeah.
Where are they now? 6 feet under. With all the money, with all the land.
Which is where we'll all end up, anyway.
Yes, even when we don't have.
Even when we don't have.
Correct.
Thank you.
Morals.
Listen,
the foolish.
You know, when we talk about Thursday and we talk about throwback and we talk about TBT,
Yes.
I think this is it. Thank you for taking us down memory lane.
Good.
Thank you for sharing your thoughts with us and with the country. Mtumishii Njeru Kathangu was a former Runyenjes Member of Parliament, freedom fighter in this country. I'm so honored that you spoke to us today.
I'm very honored myself.
We're very honored
very,
that you shared
very
all
rarely I
your
get into
insights.
such room.
And please come again. You are more than welcome here
Thank you.
at Royal Media
Thank you very
Services
much.
and at Hot 96 and everywhere.
Yes.
Just before we go into the news, I mean, I think this is a good way to end with this song, which is a throwback, but which just sums up everything we've said. Roger Whittaker.
Catch Jeff Koinange and Professor Hamo every day, Monday to Friday from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m. only on Hot 96.